Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a follow-up video for iOS 16 Beta 2, and this is just going to be a quick video giving you my experience with battery life, bugs, and any obvious new features that I've actually found. We'll be discussing iOS 16 Beta 2 as well as WatchOS 9 Beta 2, and I'll just quickly touch on tvOS as well. I have got a screen recording going, so what we'll do is we'll just take a look on the actual phone itself. Initially, I want to just quickly dive into battery life, bugs, and reliability. So battery life on Beta 2 has been a lot better. As I mentioned in my previous video, on Beta 1, I could barely get through the day. I would manage, but if I used it for anything intensive, recording video, any type of video editing, anything that's even slightly intensive, or just play about with it more so than normal, because obviously it was a beta, then what I found was that it was dying out before the end of the day. On Beta 2, it's got a lot better. I would say it's not quite as good as it was on iOS 15, but comparing it to Beta 1, the battery life has got a lot better. In terms of bugs, the only real bug that I found, there's a couple. So the HomeKit bug that I mentioned initially, where if you try and move some of these icons, then it kind of screws things up, and that bug is still there, but it doesn't happen every time, so it's kind of hit and miss as to whether it actually occurs or not. Another bug that I found was whenever you're using the camera from the lock screen, sometimes it would just glitch out, and when you switch to photos, it wouldn't actually display an image. So it may well take the picture or the video, but the actual viewfinder didn't update. The way around that is to simply unlock the phone and you just use the camera from the actual home screen itself, and that got around it. One other thing that I just wanted to touch on that I mentioned in my previous video, which was the Eufy app. So there was only one app that actually broke, and that was the Eufy security app. So if I just come out of filming and come into the normal one, so if it was the Eufy security app that basically previously just stopped working for me, and every time I clicked on it, it would just crash. I did manage to get this working simply by logging into it on another device, and then I deleted the app completely from this device, re-downloaded it, logged in again, and as soon as I did that, it was working again. So in terms of apps, everything is working that was previously working. So I've always had an issue with the Lloyd's TSB app here in the UK, and that's still the same, so that hasn't improved. Not really found any other bugs or real big issues. Some people have stated that the music app kept crashing for them, and in particular it was to do with CarPlay. Now I don't have CarPlay in my car, so I can only test the music app on device, and whenever I've used it on device, it's always worked perfectly fine. So from that side of things, yeah, it's pretty much same as it was on iOS 15. No real issues there. Battery life, as I mentioned, has got a lot better. As far as the watch is concerned, battery life on Beta 2 is a lot better, and for me, fast charging wasn't working on Beta 1. On Beta 2, fast charging is now working, so it will charge up very quickly whenever you want to actually quickly charge it, because I am now using the sleep tracking, because it does actually give a lot more in-depth data. So if we just come in and we go down to sleep, you can see it now gives a lot more data, and you can go in further and it will actually give you the different stages of sleep that you actually have as well. So because of that, I have actually been using it, and simply because it is a better way to wake up when it just softly sort of vibrates on your wrist rather than having to hear the actual alarm itself. It also makes it a lot more convenient to actually switch the alarm off as well. So I have been using the watch for that. One thing, as we're discussing the watch, there's a new feature that was brought in with iOS 16, but it wasn't actually working previously. So if we come down to not wallpaper, accessibilities, and we come down, there is this option for Apple Watch mirroring, and if we switch that on, it does now actually work. Previously it would just show this black screen and it wouldn't actually load. So as you can see, it is now loading, and you can use this in exactly the same way as you would normally. So if I click that, you can see it is updating, and if I hit the home button, it goes back. If we hit the home icon, if we hit the home icon, as you can see, I can scroll and it just puts a little ring around the actual Apple Watch itself. And obviously I'm controlling all of this from the actual app rather than from the actual watch itself. Now, I know this is in there as an accessibility feature, but the only real use I can see for this is for YouTubers or anybody that wants to actually record a tutorial, because if you're having to use this, then more than likely you're not going to actually be using the watch itself. But yeah, it's in there, it works now, and from all of my testing it seems to work pretty well, and most of your clicks, your swipes, your touches, all those kind of things, they all work perfectly fine. And the other sort of big change in beta 2 is the new way that you actually edit home screens. So obviously the lock screen customization. So if we come in, you do have a few more options in a couple of the things, and also how you actually get rid of a screen. Say for example, if I've created this and I don't want it anymore, you just swipe up, and it's very similar to the Apple Watch interface now. Anybody that's used the Apple Watch will find this very, very familiar, and I think that is actually quite good, because it is a case of, if you've had the watch, then this is all natural and you're just already used to how this actually works. The globe or the earth and moon and everything like that, these wallpapers have got a lot better, and even when you're in this sort of notification screen when you're editing, it does still do the animation as it does from the lock screen. I don't want to lock it at the moment because it'll end the screen recording, but it's basically doing exactly the same thing on this screen as it does when you actually lock the device, and essentially like the zoom in and out works both ways, and you do get the little dot. You might be able to see it just there in between the Eufy and the YouTube icon, which basically gives you your location, and it will update and obviously show your correct location. In terms of the weather lock screen, I'm still finding that this isn't quite accurate. So at the moment it's showing sort of cloudy weather. Yeah, it is kind of cloudy, but whenever this updates, so throughout the day whenever it gets warmer, this will still lag behind quite a bit, and maybe in the evening once it's actually cleared up or has become cloudy, that's when this will actually update. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it's there, and I'm sure that's just one of those things where by the final release it will actually get ironed out and work fully and work a lot better. Other than that, there hasn't really been a lot different. Others have mentioned that the haptic feedback feels a bit more stronger. To be honest, I didn't really notice that, but just having the haptics in the actual OS itself, whenever you're typing for anything, it does make the whole thing better. One thing I've just noticed is the haptics don't work whilst you're doing a screen recording. So yeah, there is that. So I'm guessing it won't also work maybe on phone calls whenever you're using loudspeaker or doing any type of recording, so possibly on videos and things like that as well. One thing that I've kind of got used to and I do really like is whenever you use Face ID, it gives you the little haptic feedback. So I didn't mention it does it from the lock screen previously, but what I also noticed is whenever you go into any app, it also gives you that little haptic feedback, and it's very subtle. It's not like a big clunky haptic. It's very subtle in the way that it does it. So yeah, that's something that is really good. Now quickly touching on tvOS. So tvOS hasn't really had any new features. However, what it has kind of done is broken automations. So if we just come into the Homekit app, and if I scroll down, so I have this automation where essentially whenever somebody approaches my house, it will turn on all of the LEDs in the house and it will play a chime. This is because of where our door is, because of where our living room is, and because of obviously the home theatre. If we're watching a movie or something, generally we're not going to hear somebody knocking on the door, and a lot of couriers don't ring the doorbell despite there being signs all over the front door asking them to do so. So this was kind of set up so then it rings a chime, so you're either going to hear it or you're going to see all the LEDs have come on. And the way it worked was all the LEDs come on for 1 minute and then they all go off again. Now what I've noticed is in iOS 16 or tvOS 16, I don't know which one is actually doing this, but this seems to have broken. So anything where you have a timer and it times out after a certain period of time, it just simply isn't working. So it won't switch off. So all the LEDs come on, but they never go off again. So what I have found is throughout the day, I've continuously having to turn the LEDs off after somebody's approached the front door or somebody's just gone out and it's triggered the actual sensor. So for that reason, as you can see, I've currently got this disabled. Another thing that it has also done is anything nested in automations, it's also kind of broken. So if we just come into the front room and we come down to the wireless switch, if you remember previously when I actually set up this wireless switch, I had it set so then you could actually toggle, and you could toggle something on and off using a Siri Automation. So if we come in and we select this and we come down and we convert it to shortcut, previously you could actually do nested automations and they would work. That's something that is not working in iOS 16. So if you use if this then that, and you set up something where you want it to check to see whether the LEDs are on, if they're not on, turn them on, if they are on, turn them off, that is not working in iOS 16 or tvOS 16. I'm not sure which one is actually broken, but any of those kind of automations aren't working. Another thing in HomeKit that doesn't seem to work anymore is joining different devices together. So if we come down and you come to group, this option is no longer working. So if we just select a couple of these LEDs, as you can see, it doesn't give me the option to actually hit done. So I can't actually group any of these icons. Any devices that were previously grouped, what I actually found was they don't particularly work properly either. So half the devices will either trigger or not trigger whenever an automation is carried out as well. So as far as HomeKit is concerned, things have actually got a lot worse since these betas have actually come out, and that's something that I'm hoping is just a beta bug and something that they can actually fix rather than it being something that they've simply disabled. So yeah, that's my experience of iOS 16 beta 2 and the WatchOS as well as tvOS beta 2 updates. I will have more update videos coming as and when the new updates or the new beta releases actually come out. I won't necessarily concentrate too much on each and every change because there's other people doing that and they're doing it so in depth that it doesn't leave much to cover. However, what a lot of them aren't necessarily doing is using their devices in the way I do, where it's very HomeKit orientated. So any small changes, any breakages, any new features, anything that does start to work again might signify that you guys can actually maybe update to beta 3, beta 4 or whenever down the line if you did want to try it out, as well as obviously any bugs and just battery life in general as well. So obviously for those videos, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and also hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any new videos, and I'd really appreciate if you also give this video a thumbs up. And until the next one, thanks very much for watching.